we're going to get started right on time. Thank you all for being here tonight for the second of two-part talking about, trash and waste. I think it's a topic that we were just saying, I firmly believe there's a will, there's a way. And I think with leadership, I know, having worked with Christine before when she was in government, I do feel like I think maybe we're finally getting there. At least I hope. But thank you all for being here for Whither Waste Charging, and we're going to have two panels. We have great speakers. In May 28th, a few weeks ago, we had the part one, and today we're going to do part two. And really, we're going to have some great panelists sharing some of the tricks and some of the tips about how we can get a lot of these issues sorted out, and it is really better now than ever. But I had a personal story, and one of the things I was going to ask our speakers later was, recently, last weekend, I went to a funeral. Afterward, there was a lunch after the funeral. And I guess I should have known this, but I was really surprised at all the food was thrown into the trash. And unlike other wedding banquets or other banquets, you take the food home or leftovers. But because it was a funeral service, and it was so much food, and it just pains me to see it. But that's kind of the practice. And I wonder if some of the panelists can address some of these. But I think some of these cultural practices, superstitions or whatever, I'm sure can be addressed over time. And we have to start. Sometimes. And so who better than our esteemed scholar and resident Christine Lowe to get us in this kind of a setting. And many of you are in this field or interested in these field. So thank you all for being here. And I'm just so delighted that we have Christine as one of our four scholars in resident to address this really important topic about waste and also ESG. And please support us. Those of you who are not members, consider becoming a member. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Christine. Thank you.
Alice, thank you so much for allowing us again to have actually a second talk on waste. And I'm particularly privileged this time to be partnering with Marcy Trent Long, whom you will meet in a minute. So we're doing a double act. We have a longer show for you today with two panels. I only want to say that, with our first event a month ago, we were a little bit depressed on that day because the government just announced that they would perhaps delay. We didn't have a date about waste charging. And on that occasion, we introduced a number of people who talked to us about actually some of the good things, some of the wonderful infrastructure that Hong Kong already has. So I want you to not go away today thinking that everything is not working. And I hope by the end of this evening, you will find that actually many institutions, many professional people are actually ready for the waste charging scheme in Hong Kong. I just want you to think about this in terms of waste, because in the past, it's about, if I say this in Cantonese, right, tam lap sap, it's about just getting rid of the garbage. But I think the newer thinking, it's about, well, the waste. Whose waste is it? It is our waste, and we do have some responsibility. So I'm not going to say very much more, but to bring everybody together, just on some of the data, I've invited Alicia Shen to come and share some data with us before we start the first panel. So over to you, Alicia.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to get to speak to you all today. As you all likely know, waste is an extremely complicated issue, and the Municipal Solid Waste, or MSW scheme, is really forcing us to confront our waste and our responsibilities over it. And recently, the scheme has been shelved, but Hong Kong is still going to have to deal with its waste, and the scheme is likely to return because we are currently exhausting our landfills. So how much MSW are we currently having to manage? MSW makes up the largest component of the solid waste that is produced in Hong Kong. In 2022, Hong Kong produced over 11,000 tons of MSW per day. And this high volume of waste is very complicated to deal with because it involves many different types of waste materials, as we can see in this chart. So currently, food waste, plastics, and paper are making up the largest amount of our MSW. But MSW can also be recovered, and currently Hong Kong is recovering around 32% of our MSW, and our challenge for the future is to do much better on this front. So here is a breakdown of that 32% that we are recovering. As you can see, we're doing reasonably well when it comes to metals and paper, but we still have a long way to go, particularly with food waste and plastics. The MSW scheme seems very complicated, but it's essentially asking us to follow a very simple mantra that I'm sure most of you have encountered: to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And it turns out there are many businesses and organizations in Hong Kong that are MSW ready, or ready for this scheme. So let me invite our first panel and our moderator on stage to discuss their journeys on getting MSW ready. Thank you.
Great. That was a wonderful summary to start with, Alicia. Thank you very much. And thank you for Christine Lowe for inviting me to moderate this panel a little bit. Marcy Trent Long, I host a fun show on RTHK3 called Trash Talk. It's all about reuse, reduce, recycle in Hong Kong. It's Monday mornings at 10:10, and then we podcast it out. So you can find it on Apple Podcasts anytime. And I am joined by very esteemed gentlemen on this panel today, mostly because they have gone through this incredibly detailed journey of reuse, reduce, recycle to get MSW ready, and they are pretty much MSW ready. So we've got Graham Long, executive chef for East at Hong Kong. We've got Martin Putnam, who runs sustainability at the airport, Hong Kong Airport. And to my left here is Alan Mock, who's the facilities manager at Hong Kong University of Sustainability and Technology. And they're going to go in turn. We'll start with Graham. And Graham is the executive chef at East. East is not only, one restaurant, it's actually a hotel with a variety of F&B outlets, and they've been very committed to being MSW ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for having me. So I just wanted to give a little perspective on the hospitality industry in general, but in specific what we do at the hotel. So we've been working incredibly hard the last few years to try and increase our waste diversion rate. So that's how much of our waste that comes from the hotel, not only from the food and beverage outlets, but from all the operations of the hotel, meeting rooms and notepads and everything. So from 2022 to 2023, we increased by 5%, and next year we want to increase by another 5%. So obviously you've got your normal kind of paper, metal, plastic, glass, food waste, used cooking oil, but we're also having to find unique responses to certain items. So oyster shells, for example, we're working with a company called Nature Conservancy that are using the oyster shells to rebuild oyster beds here in Hong Kong. Coffee grounds, we're partnering with, one ceramic company that is using coffee grounds to make ceramics and kind of reusable coffee cups. And, we've done some one-off things as well that have helped. So last year for Christmas, we used Cathay Pacific's waste uniforms to make our Christmas decorations for the hotel. So, but as I say, it gets, the more you break it down, it gets harder and harder to find streams for these individual different types of waste. But as I say, especially with MSW coming down the track, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've really tried to work as hard as we can to reduce what we throw away. In the kitchen itself and in any kind of hospitality business, obviously we take a raw ingredient, a raw product, and then we trim it, cook it, and then serve it to our guests. So on the way from when we receive the food to when you receive the food, there are lots of different areas where waste can occur, and it needs to be controlled. So obviously ordering and stock control is important in terms of ordering the right amount of food, managing the quality of that food and how you store it. Also, most of the food comes in some kind of packaging, so we try and work with our suppliers to minimize packaging, but especially when you're dealing with imports from overseas and also buying particular products that come packaged, that's quite difficult to do. So we have on our receiving area, we have a receiving officer that takes all the boxes and all the packaging and then puts it straight into our recycling bins. Go back one, if that's okay. Thank you. So obviously we make sure that all of our different departments and kitchen departments, we use a computerized stock system so that we can track exactly what we have in the building. So when we order more, we make sure we're not ordering too much. And then when it comes to preparation and cooking, it's about trying to use the kind of trimming and food waste for other things. So from, say, a rib of beef, we will take the trimmings from that and then we will use that in the staff canteen. So it's about trying to be clever about how you use the products. So for a chicken, for example, we won't just order the chicken breast, we'll order the whole chicken and then we will use the legs for another dish, use the bones for stock. Not only does that reduce waste, but it also makes economic sense. Because it's cheaper to buy, believe it or not, it's cheaper to buy a whole chicken than it is to buy 2 chicken breasts and 2 chicken legs. Believe it or not. So, and then when it comes to serving, portion size control is very important. Obviously, we're in the business of giving people what they want and giving people a product that they can enjoy and value for money. So, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're not overfeeding people and that they can't finish their food and then we have to throw it away. And then finally, when it comes to food waste and leftovers, so obviously any usable food that's left from a buffet or from an event or whatever, we can use in the staff canteen. Any unusable food, we do have our own food waste recycling machines, which are actually on the next slide. So the Orca food waste digesters, we've got 3 of these machines in the hotel, and they basically work like a big stomach. So you put all of your kind of plate scrapes or organic waste in there, and it gets dissolved and then just goes down into the drain as organic waste. So it means we don't have kind of food waste bins hanging around and things like that. Other things we do at the hotel, we've got our Bao beer, which we use all of our surplus bread from the hotel. We send to Moonzen Brewery, and then they turn it into a lager for us that we then sell in the hotel bar. We've put filtered water from Bellu in all of our rooms and restaurants, so that eliminates any bottle waste. And then obviously in the public areas of the hotel and the rooms, we've put the recycling bins. So as I say, there's a lot more we can do, but we are trying to do everything that we can and bring that waste diversion rate down up as much as possible.
You've introduced a bunch of new topics that I never even knew about before in the kitchen. So I think you guys are doing a lot, and it's really exciting. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go through everyone first, and then hopefully we have time for a little chat. So Martin runs the airport, and the airport is also
I don't run the
complicated.
airport.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, sustainability at the airport. Maybe you want to run the airport. And so while on one side, the chef side is quite complicated with the F&B outlets, Martin not only has the restaurants under his care at the airport, then there's also, of course, the airplane waste and just general consumer waste. So a little bit more complicated.
Yes, I'm one of the sustainability team at the airport, and one of my responsibilities is waste management and trying to factor or plan ahead what we do when the 3RS is fully operational with much increased waste. I condensed 10 slides into 4 this morning after a late email, so there's a huge amount of information on my 4 slides. So I'll just whiz through them. We collect waste from our tenants, premises managed by AA, like the terminals, concourses, Sky Pier, offices, Midfield Concourse, and so on. And from tenants within those buildings, we have over 300 tenants, and we have the public bin arrangements too in those buildings. We also collect waste from aircraft cabins, not the catering waste. That goes back to the caterers, so it's just back of seat waste really. And if you follow that diagram, the top part of that diagram, whatever we get in terms of recyclables or non-recyclables from our tenants, they get delivered to our refuse rooms, about 20 refuse rooms in the buildings that we have, and our waste management contractor takes over there, and those get transferred to a landside waste station, which is where we consolidate the waste, and some of those that are separated go to recyclers, and the rest is compacted and goes to landfill. From aircraft, we get, again, whatever's separated upstream, we try and keep separated. That goes to an airside waste station near the control tower. And again, anything non-recyclable gets compacted, and the recyclables go off to recycling. And I think that red dotted line is our waste management contractor's responsibility. And he handles waste coming into the refuse rooms in terms of the buildings or into the airside waste station from aircraft. And our waste management arrangements rely on upstream separation. We really don't have room or the scope to separate downstream, and it's very costly doing it that way. And of course, tenants and our cleaners, many of them play a key role on the aircraft or in the building. If you look at the chart on the right there, we get around 100,000 arrivals a day. 30 or 40% of the waste that we receive is from aircraft, and 60 to 70%, that green part, is from our buildings and facilities. And you can see the split of our waste there. I better move on to the next slide. This is our target. If you look at the figure on the right bottom, our target is based on what is recyclable. We don't try and set a target for what we can't yet recycle, and we may change that in the future. So we concentrate on those colourful elements apart from liquid. And our target is to increase recyclables by 25% by 2025 compared to a 2018 baseline. And we're struggling actually after COVID to increase our recycling rate. We're working hard at it. MSW may well have helped in that for the next year and a half. But we're about to get up to 22%, I think, soon after 2024. There's a few things we're working on. And we hope to achieve that target, I should say. What we do is we have to rely on marketable recyclables because it's our waste management contractor that deals with the recyclables. Okay, next slide. We started preparing for MSW charging. It's been a long, sort of drawn-out process. We thought it was coming in 2020, so we started a program in 2018, and we did a big trial with all of our tenants on. We created bags and got the HKPC in to do a phased trial across all of our tenants and with airlines, and we came up with a scheme that we were going to use, and then we shelved it, and then it came back into being, and the target was it was end of last year, then it became March, and then it was August, and then it was dropped, and so we've been redoing what we did before, basically, which is working out how we make the polluter pay. How do we incentivize our tenants and the airlines and their handlers to pay for their own waste? And we engaged all waste generators on the arrangements. We basically chose the debag approach of governments instead of replicating that system. And we did a 3-month trial again across all of our tenants and with airlines. And I think everyone accepted the debag approach. We went to the Airline Operators Committee. We talked to all of our major tenants and minor tenants, and just a couple of points on the right. We used 74,000 odd dummy debags in the trial, and I think we were trying to learn and improve on what we were trying to set up with our tenants, and we will continue to do that if the scheme comes back on. And with airlines, we trialled a number of flights. Interesting part of that is how much it costs for MSW charge on a flight, and you can see when it's such a low charge, it's very hard to administer. The cost of administering is difficult, and you know it's not a huge amount of money that you have to spend if you send your recyclables to the landfill. Last slide. I'm being hurried along. So, I mean, we have a lot of operational things in place to reduce waste. You've seen those water zones at the airport, encourage the use of reusable bottles instead of plastic. We have the three system taps where you don't have to use paper. We're trying to think of all those things that we can implement. We really discourage our F&B outlets from using disposable tableware and cutlery. And but we have all sorts of other initiatives upstream, which include very stringent requirements in tenancy agreements on what you must do with your waste and where to put it. And we give out free recycling bags for food to encourage, and we educate our tenants continually. We do a lot of more inspections and follow-up. Those bags have a unique code to who we give them to. We know who's misusing those bags. And we try and encourage tenants and cleaners through, if they show that they're doing what they're supposed to, we give out vouchers, simple systems like that. And our contractor, we let them keep the full value of the recyclables. Whilst we rely on upstream, we incentivize them to whatever value they get, they keep, and we give them a performance bonus depending on the recyclables that they get. And that goes up to 9% of the monthly management fee. And there's a penalty if they get below a certain percentage. And it sounds difficult, but most of our recyclables are paper. 90% of the valuable material is paper, so it's quite that's really the focus of that incentive scheme. And we do really well with paper recycling because it has a value. When there's no value, it's extremely difficult to encourage recycling. I think that's it.
You scooched along very well. Thank you very much. And now I will hand it over to Alan Mock at HKUST to talk about their very exciting program as well.
Thank you. In this slide, I would like to share the process, how we handle the waste daily in our campus. In the first step, you can see that is the plastic bag only for the Hong Kong UST. We start the trial one in our campus on 1st of January this year. We collect, every day we collect the waste from different offices, from student hall and also from laboratory. And all the waste will centralize in the main refuse chamber. For every single bins, we will check the total waste for every single bins. And all the data, we will use the management system, the so-called the Greenbird system. All the data will upload to the system. And the data is very important for us because we use that figure to formulate different strategies for our campus, how we further reduce the waste in our campus. And after we check the waste, we will dispose all the waste in the compactor. We use the compactor to collect the waste. If you familiarize of the MSW policy, you can know that if we use that compactor, we must pay the fee by gate fee. That is the reason why we use our own bag instead of the government bag. Okay, we can go to the next. For the recycling, you can see we have different type of the recyclable items for our campus. Totally, we have 19 different types. The special one is the landscape waste and the animal bedding from the laboratory. We use these two items for producing the compost. For other things, just like the styrofoam, the glass bottle, and electrical appliances, we all collect in our campus. And we have some scheme to encourage our people to reduce the waste from the stream, the main stream. There are two typical examples. We endorse the low plastic bottle policy in our campus. We install some water fountain in different locations in our campus and encourage our student staff to use their own bottles to contain the water, so that the bottled waters under 1 liter that is not allowed to sell in our campus already. The other campaign is we have a joint program with the Hong Kong Jockey Club. We encourage our people to reduce the compostable lunchbox. They can lend the lunchbox from the machine, and the lunchbox, if they use their own lunchbox, the caterer will reduce the $1 for when they buy the lunch or the dinner. And you can see the figures from 2014. There is very high figure in my campus, around 255 tons per month. Under our target, we need to reduce the weight by 50% in 2020. Actually, we can achieve this target. But in our coming target, we need to further reduce the weight to further 55%. That's a very, very ambitious figures. So that my team also work very closely with the Sustainability Office, try to further meet the target and in 2028. The education is the main objective for our university, so that the staff, the student engagement is very important. We have some different green activities, just like the beach cleaning activities. We usually launch every quarter. We invite the student, the staff to join it. For these activities, we would like to promote the green, to promote the awareness for the waste reduction and also the recycling in our campus. I think that is a major task for my team and also different office.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, guys. Well, we're a little short on time. We only have about 2 minutes left before we pass it off to the next panel. But what I would like to ask is what your biggest challenge has been in getting MSW ready. So we've seen your successes, right? You've reduced the waste, you've increased your recycling, and one of the things you all have in common is a strong sustainability purpose and office. So you're not fighting your senior management, I would hope. That's not one of your biggest challenges. But maybe we could just one by one, I'll start with Alan on what's been one of your biggest challenges in putting this together.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge for us is we need to educate different people in our campus how to further reduce the waste. Through the education from our office and also the Sustainability Office, we launched some activities to promote and further reduce the waste target every year. In launching the MSW, we need to have a very clear communication with different offices before we actually have a trial screen. We spend some time to explain the philosophy why we need to charge different offices. Because we would like to unite with the principle from the government, pay by polluter, instead of the one single office to pay the money. So that we launched the key screen to share the cost from different offices and also promote the waste reduction concept for different offices.
Yeah. That is very advanced, charging each department for their waste. Graham, do you do that in the kitchen?
No, unfortunately not. No. I would say for us at the hotel, our main kind of bottleneck is staffing and space. So obviously we've only got a certain amount of space in the hotel that where we can store and have different separation bins. But then also we have to have the staffing in place to either sort it or make sure that it goes in the right bins and things like that. And at the end of the day, we're quite lucky as a hotel and as a company that we invest a lot in these kind of things. But I think, speaking for the hospitality industry in general, if you're a small restaurant or even a small chain of restaurants, investing in the infrastructure, but also the day-to-day staffing does become a problem and does create a bottleneck.
Martin?
Well, I think the big challenge was education, but with our trials, that really helped with using bags that look like the ones that were going to come in. I think the bigger challenge for us would have been compliance, because our point of checking by EPD is when it goes into our RCV at the waste station and goes off to landfill. But we have to be responsible for who's delivering what to the refuse rooms and who's putting it in the wrong bags and checking all of those things, which we were trying to start working on. And the government gave us a 6-month grace period, which would have been fantastic, and we may have needed more to work that through. And the implications for us operationally were our operations teams trying to reduce all the waste bins everywhere and cut waste bins from the bus station and so on. So it was going to have a knock-on impact on where you put your waste because we don't want to be handling and paying for other people's waste.
Well, that was fascinating. More when I invite you guys back to the Trash Talk show. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Christine Lowe and the next group of speakers.
Well, thank you to the first panel, and I think the it doesn't matter that much, but yes, that's fine. Well, I hope you found the first talk interesting, because one of the main points is about getting ready. And panel 2, I think have at least 2 gentlemen here that you probably don't know how important they are. And very often we have people who have very enormous responsibility in society that we don't know about. So I'm going to start with Johnny. And Johnny is a current council member, but he was also a former president of an association called the Hong Kong Association of Property Management Companies, PMC. And you probably don't think very much about these people. But actually, under our waste charging system, they are critical. And perhaps, Johnny, you can just start by explaining a little bit to us about how critical property management companies are in this whole scheme.
Well, the Hong Kong, let me introduce a little bit background about the association. The Hong Kong Association of Property Management Companies was actually founded some 24 years ago in 1990. So, well, I think we have been working very closely with the EPD for more than 3 decades. So I just told Christine that the first program I involved in waste management was the Waste Reduction Committee, which was formed, I think, more than some 25 years ago. So I worked very closely with Edwin, one of the advocates in the Green Group. So I'm a bit upset, I would say, to almost more than 20 years passed already, but we're still discussing, negotiating, and we were a bit pleased to hear that the government is determined to implement the MSW charging scheme. So I think started from 2 years ago, we collaborate very closely with the EPD officials. So we help the government to formulate this guidebook. This is called the best practice guide. So in order to help the government implement the scheme. So, and even in last year, so we have arranged a number of training programs for management staff and also cleansing staff. We have organized more than 60 training programs already. So we also train the owners organization, including members from the owners corporation, and also the key office bearers of the owners corporation, who are actually decision makers, who are actually the person who pay. So that is important. So, well, as far as the property management industry is concerned, the next one, this is the key message. We are ready. We are ready already. So as you can see, we have mobilized and organized a number of activities in order to help residents, the frontline operatives, frontline management staff to understand what exactly the new legislation would cover. So as far as we are concerned, most of the owners' organizations are ready. So over the last 6 months, I think we have organized a number of trial schemes, train our frontline operatives, as well as the key stakeholders in the frontline, including those engaged in the property management services, not only the practitioner, but also the key stakeholders, that is the residents, the property owners. So we are a bit upset. Of course, we fully understand the rationale behind the announcement of the government about the postponement of the charging scheme. So we fully understand, and I hope within the next coming 6 months, we will be able to provide more facilities to help the government promote the concept of MSW charging. So I think property management services is ready. So, of course, you understand the concern raised by other sectors, such as the F&B services, and other sectors in the community. So, I think through our joint effort, we would be able to achieve our target. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I can say that the block of flats that I live in, the management is ready. Perhaps I can now come to Ron. He's the Chief Strategy Officer for Baguio. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the company Baguio, but you might not know how extensive the company is. They were founded in 1980, is a listed company in Hong Kong, have 10,000 employees, and you clean streets, you recycle, you provide recycle services for food waste, and you have recycling plants. Baguio is a huge company dealing with waste. So, Ron, maybe you can share with us that how much of the public sector waste services does your company provide for Hong Kong? And also, how much of the private sector services do you provide?
Okay, may I turn to the next page? Okay. Actually, our service, people call us a garbage company, but actually we do more than garbage. We are a recycling group. And we actually help Hong Kong on behalf of the private sector and the public government to collect almost all sorts of recyclables in Hong Kong, including plastic, glass bottles, horse waste, chicken waste, wood waste, pig waste, food waste, chemical waste, and paper as well. Should be the most comprehensive offerings in Hong Kong. And we do not only collect the waste or recyclables in Hong Kong. We convert the recyclables into something valuables and reusables in Hong Kong. For example, in Hong Kong, we collect for more than 3,000 free color bins in Hong Kong on behalf of the government every day. And we also are the leader to collect the food waste in Hong Kong. And we are also one of the most influential company to collect the gas bottles. We do not collect the gas bottles from the street. We have a team of the community people to talk to the key stakeholder, be it the hotel, restaurant, pub, and the residential building, to persuade them to give us their bottles after the use. So we are maximizing the collection of the gas bottles. And the gas bottles are really successful because for every 10 bottles used in Hong Kong, 6 bottles could come back to our hands. So we have been in this industry for more than 15 years. And then we have six or seven plants in Hong Kong to convert the recyclables to something reusables again in Hong Kong. For example, for the plastic bottle, we have a plant here. And then we convert the plastic bottles to recycled plastic materials that could be subsequently to produce another plastic bottles again. So we can make sure that zero emission for every single bottle we use here. We can convert to something reusable again. And for the glass bottles, we have a plant here, and then we convert the glass bottles to construction materials. For example, when the airport authority build the third runway, the first thing they need to do is to reclaim a piece of land from the sea. And they're using our construction materials to reclaim the land from the sea. And we have also one plant here, it's a new plant here, we call it biotechnology plant. It's a magic. We use that plant, we breed an insect called black soldier fly. It's just like a flies to eat the chicken manure, and then so that the insects could grow from this size to that size. There's an insect protein, and we use the insect protein to feed the fish here in Hong Kong. So it's like an interesting thing we are doing here.
Well, I think one of the things that you can take away about waste is it really is a very complicated sector, and there are many things that people need to do. Now, let me come to Professor Wong. Professor Wong, I have to tell you that him and I have been working on waste, sustainable ideas for a very, very long time, and Jonathan has been an advisor also to the government. Food waste, right? This is your main passion. So share a perspective with us, because this is one of the major area of waste that Hong Kong needs to deal with. Jonathan.
Okay, Christine, thank you very much. I'm not from the corporate, academic. So are we ready? When all the company coming up, they all said ready. Then the next question is, whether is our government ready or not? Okay, food waste collection. I think one of the major topics during the implementation of the charging scheme, a lot of people say that there's not enough facility. So this is the food waste collection bin, really effective, really smart, but it's not enough. Currently, it's only a few stations all around Hong Kong. So probably we are not ready on that. But the government is going to do it, and we are now delaying the implementation of the charging scheme in the next 12 months. I do think that we can make it ready, because it's not difficult. Money. The government got the money, do a calculation, how much we need per estate. Instead of one per estate, that's definitely is not enough. That's why people complain about it. So I would say that that is already technology ready. It's whether we got enough number in the estate. So we will start with the housing estate, get it enough, people won't complain about it. Next one. Okay, next is our facility. So we got O-Part 1, O-Part 2, and also the co-digestion plant. So do we have sufficient capacity? Next one. So very simple. Up to 2024, we should go up to 600 tons per day. But currently, we produce around 3,300 tons. We are not ready. But why we need everything ready right at the beginning? That's not necessary. That's why a lot of people or our councillor, legislative councillors already say, you get everything ready. You must be 100% perfect before you can implement charging scheme. Is it correct? No. None of the city in the world is doing that. They will start with certain amount of capacity, certain amount of collection capacity, and then go on, even though there may be some kind of hiccup. We need to face the hiccup when we carry out, because different culture, they have different type of mentality in managing the waste. So how can you be perfect right at the beginning before you implement? So there's no way you can be perfect. Once you get ready to certain stage, go ahead and do it. Everyone work together. Then we can solve the problem. Next one. So that's what I want to conclude. We want a happy waste charging scheme. Everything, this is an experience we did it almost 20 years in China, in a provincial, in a county level. Educational level is around primary. They can do it. Why 20 years later in Hong Kong, we cannot do it? They are not ready also at that moment. But just go ahead to do it, help them, government working together with them. Now, that means we are not saying that once we implement you can't go wrong. No. We can accept it. We can modify it. We got flexibility rather than just prosecution. Then the things can go on. After 2 or 3 years, review it and then further improve it. So we should have a happy waste charging scheme in Hong Kong.
Right. We will raise happiness, unlike the unhappiness that people expressed during, the trials. But perhaps, Johnny, I can come back to you. You told us just now that actually your association had many, many talks and preparation for members of the association. So these are the people who are the managers of where you live and where you work. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about what it takes to do all of that. And the degree of readiness that you mentioned is actually very high, right?
So maybe let me elaborate a little bit further about the background of the association as well. Well, we have organized talks and training courses not only for practitioners working in the property management companies or cleansing company, but also our key partners. That is residents association, property owners organization, etc. So the challenges actually we face, the common concern of the key stakeholders in Hong Kong is cost. Who is going to absorb the additional cost? But again, this problem has been resolved already, because at the time when the government announced about the implementation of the MSW charging scheme, which will go ahead on the 1st of April this year. So we started to discuss with the residents organization, because there are other legislation governing property management in Hong Kong. Say, for instance, we need to prepare a budget in order to cope with the new legislative amendment. So I would say 99% of property management companies and owners' organizations have been able to reach consensus. They passed the budget. They agreed the budget, which incorporate the additional expenses for MSW charging, which will include extra manpower and also extra facilities. So we are very reserved about the policy of distributing designated garbage bags to residents, because that would violate the polluter pay principle. This is obviously is not the intention of the government for introducing MSW. So we talked to the government. So do you think this is a right move? But of course, the government said, well, we need a trial scheme. Another problem is garbage bags, designated garbage bags would only be distributed to residents living in the public rental housing estate. This would amount to discrimination against those law-abiding citizens, right? That was the challenges we faced. We have relayed this sort of feedback from local residents, in particular those living in private housing estates. This is unfair. So what's the point of distributing designated refuse bags to only a sector of the community? So that would violate the polluter pays principle. So this is what we have been advocating, and we are still discussing with the government at this point of time.
Right. So, I mean, maybe we can have a little chat about cost, right? Because you might not be aware of what you have to pay. So our understanding is we will go and buy these bags, right? And then the big and the small bag, if I separate my waste by working with my PMC, right? That if they will have all these facilities for me to separate, I pay less, obviously, because I need fewer bags. Then what's the next bit? So I might pay a little bit more just to get that system going, right, in my block. But at some stage, what does Baguio and companies like yours do? You come, at what point do you take it away? And then how is that charge spread in the community? Is that a taxpayer's charge?
I think we are obviously that kind of collection is coordinated by the government. They will appoint us to in charge of certain district or geographical area, and then we'll certainly charge the government certain logistic costs. And once we finish the conversion to be the new materials again, we'll sell the new material for certain revenue to sponsor or subsidize the costs we incur in the collection.
So, but that becomes part of your P&L, right?
True.
Yes. So you and I will buy the bag. We will work with our PMC, right? They might have an additional charge for your annual fee, right? Your management fee, and then taxpayers really cover the rest of the course. Is that correct?
True, but I think we are only part of the overall value chain. I think the government is using this scheme to subsidize certain costs they incur on the landfill, because running a landfill is not cheap, right? Yeah, it also has certain land costs as well.
Jonathan, I'm sure you have a view on charging.
But I think that is exactly the normal operation. In Backyard side, it will not increase the charging on the resident. So it's only in the the property management side, they will increase the charge because they think that it will increase their work. But maybe after half a year, if everyone following the rules to pay, there's not much work increase in the housing management. So in that case, that means the cost that will incur in the resident should not be 20% before. That means 20% increase in their management cost. But now a lot of public management charge more than 20% of the current cost, you see?
Well, that is actually not the case. Would you mind to go back to this slide? Yes, next one. Yes, next one. The third one. This one, challenges.
Yeah.
Manpower is the only concern, because we need to engage extra manpower to handle the extra workload arising from collection of recyclables, but that is negotiable with the owners concerned. So as a matter of fact, it is the residents, it is the property owners who is responsible for the expenses incurred.
Yes, I agree with Johnny.
Yes.
That's why it may not increase in management fee if this become an incentive.
Yes,
if they
that's
can
right.
sell the recyclable in the market, they earn the money back and then cover the extra cost during the using of the designated bag. So that means that not necessary an increase in management fee in the future if they are managed properly, following all the guidelines. So one thing is important is that how we can enhance the incentive to the corporate management when they collect more recyclable.
Yes. We have a number of the recyclable collection programs, which is now being implemented in the major housing estates in Hong Kong. Not only housing estates in the private sector, but also in the public sector.
Can I ask the last question, just in terms of this panel, before we open up the discussion to everyone? If we don't go ahead with MSW charging at some stage, what will we not be able to do? I mean, you know, everybody is still preparing, government is preparing for more collection and more facilities and so on, all very good. Are we going to get to a certain stage where if you don't have greater incentive through charging, you're just not going to get very far?
Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you think?
That will exactly what you said. If we don't implement the waste charging and when you get everything ready, but because there's no charging, it's only voluntary for recycling. You can see that we have been practicing recycling for more than 20 years, voluntarily. How much we can get? 32%. So how can you get to 35? 55 is impossible. So that's one way we can do. Compulsory waste separation in Hong Kong by legislation is another way to do it. If you don't have waste charging, separate your waste. Otherwise, you put it into rubbish bin, you will be fined. That's another way to do it. If we want to do it, this is another way. This is punishment. So which way you want to go?
Ron, you have a comment.
I think the government has not changed the end game. The end game is they want to have a zero landfill by 2035, and then, well, MSW, they put it here, okay, temporarily, but they still have a lot of different means to helping them to achieve the target. For example, this morning I have been in the meeting with EPD. They are thinking about introducing the producer responsibility scheme for the plastic bottles. That means 2 years down the road, after you consume the bottles, you can return so-called rebate or a deposit of 10 cents. And that is a very effective way to change the recycling behavior, because this kind of scheme is proven to be very effective in certain European countries. And this is also some of the means that the government can use it alongside with the MSW.
So there's a lot more that needs to be done. So why don't I invite the first panel to come back on stage, and then we can have a discussion with the audience. Please, screen up and more chairs. Let's warm ourselves up, and this is an opportunity for you to ask all those questions that you have on mind about waste that you haven't been able to ask anyone else. So tonight I think we can answer pretty much all your questions. But maybe going back to panel 1, having heard panel 2 and about cost, is there anything you would like to add? How important, how do you see the arrangement for cost? Any comments?
I'll start. My answer might change as I think about it more. But I mean, waste management for us is a cost. If we send all of our waste to landfill, pay the MSW charge, it's 28,000 tons times 365. What's that? 10 million? I'm not sure. If we then separate recyclables, it's maybe 10% of that. The total saving is at 1 million. Our waste management charge that we charge, or the contractor charges us, Ron, is much more than that. By quite a lot. So I'm not sure how the economics work. It does incentivize, though. I think it will incentivize individual tenants. But the cost element of that, I'm not sure about whether it's a financial incentive to any degree. When you look at how much, say, for each aircraft, the cost of MSW charge would be, right, maximum for any aircraft would be about $450.
But we may or may not be able to answer this question, but if we looked at another economy, that has maybe a system that has been going longer, there must be a cost involved there somewhere. Is anybody aware of what might be happening elsewhere?
I can speak from my own experience in London. I mean, it's different from council to council. But I remember being in kind of Kensington and Chelsea, we were paying by the bag for any waste that was being collected by the trucks going around. So the incentive there was you weren't paying for the recycling. You only paid for the solid waste. So there was an incentive there for all of the restaurants, big and small, to do their separation. You know what I mean? So I think, especially like speaking from a hospitality perspective, and especially the small restaurants out there, they might not have the space, they might not have the manpower, as you suggest, but I think there does have to be some kind of incentive, like you say, to make sure that people do it. Because I've run a small business myself, and I'm sure a lot of people here have been in that situation. When it's the choice between separating your rubbish and paying an extra member of staff and using that money to pay other bills, the temptation is to pay other bills. So it's got to kind of work for small to medium-sized businesses as well as larger corporations like my own and other people here.
Let me add a point. I think if you look at a corporate like a airport authority, the waste management may be a fee from the micro point of view. From the overall bigger point of view, if for example, the corporate like airport authority do a better recycling and they can have a better ESG report. And with a better ESG report, they can get a better sustainable finance, cheaper interest rate, for example. I think the overall thing will not be as high as we anticipate.
I want to add a point. From Martin's presentation, I got a point that when you carry out the trial, you find that there's not much incentive. The charging is not really a lot. They just use the bigger bag. It doesn't matter. So that means there's not enough incentive there. But according to Graham in England, there's really good incentive. That means currently the charging, in fact, is not really a high incentive. But still, we got a lot of objection.
Yes, I think that's the point. The Hong Kong charging is actually rather low. Yes.
As we talk about the cost, actually the university spends some costs from the manpower because we have some different location for the recyclable items and also the waste. We need a small team to handle the waste every day, so that the manpower cost is the major cost for my team. And as we talk about the incentive for the MSW. Actually, we have launched the scheme from early this year, and all the department, they will share the cost. And we also, at the same time, encourage the department to reduce the waste, enhance the recyclable item, so that every month they can adjust the number of the bag they use, so that they can reduce the cost for by using the best. So that after we launched the scheme, we saw that there's a trend to reduce the waste every month in our campus.
And I think from the perspective of property management, so the cost for supporting the MSW charging is negligible when you compare with the other items, the major items contained in the management budget, such as power supply, staff costs, etc. So as far as I'm concerned, the cost involved for this scheme is only negligible.
What's the percentage then?
Well, I think it depends. It depends very much on the size of the property, on the size of the housing estate. Say, for instance, for a housing estate with more than 10,000 residential units, because well, we are able to enjoy the benefit of economies of scale. So that accounts for about, I think, less than 5% of the entire budget. And on the other hand, we have been arranging a number of programs, recycling programs. So the fees, the process collected from these recyclables will also goes into the budget. It goes into the accounts of the management accounts of the particular estate or building. So it's negligible. So I agree entirely with Jonathan's observation and viewpoint. If, say, for example, we have 10 key stakeholders in the community, and 9 out of the 10, well, such as people sitting in this theater, we are ready. So why should we wait for the other one who is not ready? So we can proceed. We can go ahead. I think this is my principle. I agree entirely with your observation, right? So we are already here. So why should we wait?
Well, now that we're all aligned, that we're all ready, we should go forward. So then it brings me back to in April, right? There was the plastic ban, which meant, takeaway items were banned. Hospitality could no longer give plastic items, and certain plastic items were just banned completely from sale. And I thought that went off without a hitch, meaning it was quite successful in its implementation. It may have been painful, and maybe anyone here can talk about that. In light of that, then what would you recommend? Is there a way that we can roll out the MSW that's a little bit more palatable, rather than starting it just from zero to full on?
I think people are interested to hear how we can get it going again. Any comments from any
Could
of
I
you
add a
at
point
this
on
stage?
that?
Yeah.
Johnny already provided the answer. Only one is not ready. Just leave it. You don't need to implement the scheme throughout the whole territory. Why the line that can go ahead first, left that one, doing exemption for this one, and then after this successful, you go ahead to persuade them will be easier. So that means don't just go ahead for the whole territory. For those who are ready, go ahead to do it first, and then after that, get more successful example, and then tell the other they are not ready, and let them know how to get ready. That's the case.
Voluntary participation. Well, actually, I myself, you take the lead to participate in the demonstration scheme. So it's very effective. You know, the response from residents are very positive. But the sample selected is only 14 buildings, 14 properties. So it's not representative enough. So I would say, well, I volunteer to take the lead. If my housing estate is ready, I want you to take the lead. Go ahead first. We don't have to wait.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, if you start at industry level and private sector and company level, where people get used to having to deal with it at work, they're going to get more used to dealing with it at home. You know, so you can roll out residential later when everyone gets used to the idea. As you said before, we've all budgeted for this anyway. You know what I mean? So, you know, that makes more sense.
Yes. Any questions and comments? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Cosmo. Thank you, Christine and Marcy, for hosting it. Very good panel. I've just two questions. I think number one is I'm very pleased that Johnny brought up your lovely green little book. But everyone here have a very good education level. We all understand and we can all read. But your book, in fact, this is about 40 pages long with 8 different versions. I'm sure Ron would know about the education level of most cleaning staff in Hong Kong. Most people would not be able, that's the unhappy side of the whole MSW charging, is people cannot understand the 40 pages, and the 40 pages don't even answer how to dispose like a broomstick, etc. So people find it's challenging to understand it. So when we relaunch it in, I think, 10 months later, do you guys have any advice? Or do we need to revamp that book, or do we need other ways to communicate MSW charging to the community? That's the first question. And quickly, a second question is on the compliance responsibility. In the version that was launched earlier, cleaners or property managers have quite a large responsibility in making sure that non-compliant stuff don't get on the FEHD truck. So when it be there, and then the minister recently came out and said, if we can't get that over, we will charge by the whole building and just do the gate fee methods. And then they kind of stepped back a little bit a few days later. So what do you think is the best method going forward from property manager and cleaning companies' perspective? Thank you.
Okay, can we start with that question first, Johnny?
Well, as far as property management is concerned, I think it is a bit unfair for the government to ask the frontline cleansing staff to take enforcement action against offenders. So they just don't have the ability. So as far as I understand, the government is going to change the law. So the secretary has already mentioned this point. I think the responsibility should rest with the resident, whoever commits the offense. They should be the person responsible, right? You should not ask the cleaning contractor or even the property management frontline staff to take enforcement action. It's absolutely unfair. So this is one point. And the second thing is about civic education. As far as I understand, most owners organization, say for instance, owners corporation, management committees, they are prepared to help the management company because the property management company is the agent acting for and on behalf of the principal. That is the residents. That is the property owners. They are ultimately responsible under this piece of ordinance. So the offender should be held responsible, not the cleaning workers, not the frontline property management staff, working in the front line. So I think this is the principle. So I would say we may start with the public rental housing estate first, because public rental housing estate is managed by housing department, which is one of the government organizations. They should be able to support government policy, right? So I think, why can't the government take the lead in this respect? So, and then the prioritize, as I said, prioritize for those who are ready, or those property, those housing estates or those buildings who are ready, they should go first on voluntary basis. I think this will set a good example for the others.
Maybe I can just add something here. I think it's vital to have the best practice guide, but the best practice guide is not necessarily for the ordinary citizen to digest and do it, right? It really is for managers. And I think part of the confusion in the public is perhaps not very effective public communication. And I think people can ask all these questions. What do I do with fish bones? And what do I do with a broken broom, right? All these questions come out. And the way is actually not to try to answer it, but actually you could say there could be demonstrations, right, during the trial period, so that you can show how to do it. I mean, I do believe, like separation and so on, it's by experience, but it's experiential. Because my own experience is, neighbors and other people, where do I put this? How do I deal with this? Actually, if you show them once, oh, this is what you do, once they do it once or twice, they get it, and then they feel it's okay. So I guess it's providing that, during the campaigning, right, to communicate. And I guess now we're re-communicating, right? We've got to go back to the people. We must have better communication to not just tell, but also show. John?
Can I get a point? Yeah. I think this is a really good question. But I show you the picture. Why I show it? They are only primary educated, but they can do it. The reason why is that we are down to earth doing demonstration, not just depend on the guidebook. The guidebook is really good, give you an example, but you need to have showcase to let them learn it. That's why in the past 15 years, the government doing trial on the designated bed, doing trial on the designated bed. It's not to demonstrate how to do separation at home. When we use this designated bed, what you should put inside, what you will face, how to solve the problem, the long brush and broom, how can you deal with it? And the government needs to get the guidelines on it. And from my point of view, whether the government is correct to prosecute the frontline people, I don't think they have the authority to do that. Who is responsible? They are only the agent. You need to prosecute. You're the one hire the agent. So that's why I feel strange how they can prosecute the cancer. But at least the government should not do it, because who is going to be responsible is the resident, and the corporate is helping them. Once they fine, it's fine to the owner corporation rather than to the company. So I think things need to be clear. I think this time is the communication is not clear. And also, the people will think, the resident will think that, oh, we are on two different sides, the government and the resident. But implement a wage charging scheme is important that we, government, work with the resident. That's really important.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, please. It's coming there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark Michelson. I work with executives who work for companies that look at this, and some of you are the same, and understand. And you've given some great examples of what you're doing, but as you said, it's been a long time. And Christine mentioned earlier, are there examples of other places that do this more successfully? And although maybe not quite the same as Hong Kong, but Taiwan or Japan. Taiwan, I don't know if the number is accurate, but recyclables, they get about 70% now. And a lot of this is voluntary because the people who do this, these are residents, have a commitment to doing it. And for some reason, they understand why that is. And these aren't the cleaners maybe, but there are people that, not necessarily higher educated people, but they understand why it's a value to the community. Can we do that in Hong Kong? Or is that important for us to do in Hong Kong?
Well, I think in the government putting the scheme forward, we did do, and I was in office at the time, so I did it, yes, studied situation elsewhere. So we studied what happened in Seoul, we studied what happened in Taipei, and obviously Japan is a very famous case. But in more recent years, I mean, that's after I left, we also have the case in Shanghai on waste separation. So what I'm saying is, there are all these examples out there in Asia. We don't even have to go to Europe, where some of these schemes have been running for a long time as well. And then I think this kind of scheme, separation and then waste reduction, is also a national policy on the mainland. So I think for Hong Kong, we can't really just let this drop. We do have to come back on this at some stage. But the important thing that I think everybody has talked about is the practice of what needs to be done. And you have the government paying for tremendous infrastructure of all kinds of ways, right? You know, you saw graphics about what kind of plants. And I think I was very interested to see that at Baguio, they are now having insects eating up waste, because people used to ask about that. Can you do that in Hong Kong? So in a way, if you're looking at infrastructure, either the government or the private sector have already put out a lot of the infrastructure to be used. So the rest is kind of up to us. Marcy.
I was just going to mention, I'm sure lots of people in this audience know, but Taiwan, right? In kindergarten, you learn how to recycle, you learn how to separate your waste, you learn how to wash the bottle. So when Hong Kong's ready to start including that in their education, then it might be easier when Ron and Alan have to teach their cleaners how to separate. It's going to be easy, right? And I know that Alan has gone through quite a lot to teach his cleaners, so I'm going to make him.
And as we start the trials in the Hong Kong UST campus, we provide the training for the staff. Actually, we don't want to put extra effort or burden for the staff. They are all the very general frontline staff. But we have a very general guideline to let them know how to separate the waste and how to collect the waste every day. And the major things is that we would like to educate the people, the staff, and the residents in the campus, so that we launch different schemes with different offices to how to promote the waste reduction in our campus. And also, we also enhance some facilities in our campus. For example, for the food waste, the major waste stream in Hong Kong. For our campus, every single block of the staff quarter, we also have the food waste bins. That is the most important thing to provide the convenience for the staff to do the recycling. That is the major principle for my team and also some department. Also, how to enhance the concept for the people to do more recycling.
I mean, what we have seen today is you can do it in the kitchen, right? And you can do it in a hotel. You can do it in a really complicated place, like the airport. It's taken a few years to actually get it right. We can do it in a building. We can do it in a much bigger estate, whether public or private. We can do it on campus, which is kind of like a little society, right, of all kinds of people. We've got cleaners and cleansing company and recycling in Hong Kong that can take and deal with that level of waste. The government is still building infrastructure. And Jonathan, you shared with us, for example, food waste. Hong Kong is adding infrastructure, but if we can't get us to actually do food waste, right? If we can't actually get food waste collection bins close to where we live, then that isn't going to be possible. But actually, we've gone a really long way in Hong Kong. Any comments? Have have you in your place of work or home, are you doing any of these things? Do you think you can get on with some of these things? Yes, at the back. Thank you.
After the first talk in this series in May, I think it was, I learnt from what Professor Wong said that there was a smart food waste bin in the Lockhart Road market. I live in Wan Chai, and I've actually complained in the South China Morning Post that apparently there were we don't have any public housing in Wan Chai, so we've got no smart food waste bins. And I discovered from what Professor said that there was one in the Lockhart Road market. I now go there nearly every day. I couldn't this morning because I had to go to a meeting in a waste facility, but and actually next to the food waste bin, the smart food waste bin, there's actually an Alba reverse vending machine that takes plastic bottles. And I can get, for every plastic bottle I put in, I can get 10 cents on my octopus card. Now that's pretty good. But by using the food waste, the smart food waste bin in the Lockhart Road market, I'm now, my household is nearly zero waste.
Well, there we are. Now, thank you for taking the trouble to actually bring your stuff to somewhere else, right, for recycling. Any perhaps final comments from the panel, your ideas, or whatever you want to share with us?
One more point to add. I think if we have the chance to launch the MSW again, we shouldn't launch it from 0 to 1. I think we should have something like a trial 1. Why don't we play the game, trial 1, 2 years, let us discover whether any problem of the system, whether, when they design the bag, they should take into the situation of a broomstick or not. Then we will find out all the problem, and then you can fix it before the formal launch. Don't penalize anyone during the trial phase, and then make sure that we learn from the process, from the citizen point of view and from the government point of view. I think that's one of the most effective ways to do the education.
Yeah, I'd probably expand on that slightly in the fact that enforcement is incredibly difficult. Say, for example, it's a shopping mall, you've got different tenants, different offices, different outlets. All the rubbish goes into a central room. You're going to have no idea who's put what in what bag or anything like that. So I think the only solution is to try and bring people with you and start from the ground up and get people enthused by the idea. And as I say, I think it's industry's position and the public sector to lead the way before we go into residential.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go now, with or without enforcement, but I do think if you can start the scheme and just prolong the grace period, don't have a 6-month grace, have a 2 years grace, and work on don't start prosecuting, just try and fine tune the system as it's already up and running. I don't see why there has to be a prosecution so soon. It might take longer. Don't delay it because you can't do it. Start and have a longer compliance. I don't think the cost that people will be paying is really prohibitive in terms of households or the waste producers in a facility like the airport.
Yeah, I do agree. We can try to start the screen for different government building and also like university. Among 8 universities of Hong Kong UST is the first one to do the trial screen, so that we can try and let's see what the problem is going up and how to solve it. that is the major target for the government, I think.
I think community engagement and also citizens' participation is crucial to the success to the MSW charging scheme. So, well, I think the government has already committed to review the situation and release a report before the middle of next year. This is the commitment of the government. So I think during the forthcoming 12 months, I think we should be more vocal. Tell the government we are ready. We are ready. So in order to demonstrate the determination of the government in the implementation of MSW. So the government, go ahead first. Go ahead. I agree entirely with your views that maybe start with the government properties. So GBA is one of the agents, should take the lead. Government property agency, and also universities, NGOs, and the Hong Kong Association of Property Management Companies would be most pleased to take the lead as well, to work in collaboration with the government. So this is what we would expect. So don't just sitting there and this after another 12 months. So, well, the community is not ready, so we postpone for another 12 months. 20 years already, right? 20 years already.
I think really the panelists said it all. So go ahead, let's roll it out. I agree with starting with business first, if that makes it easy. I'd love to see it in primary schools, because those, I bet they have the highest recycling rates. And that's the place where they can learn how to recycle.
I think the last point is that the government need to get ready. We are ready, but the government need to get ready for those things we need. And more important is that government need to down to earth. And just now the gentleman said, I think the government really need simple message to get to the resident. They can do it. And then let the case running. So good cases, so then people that's so easy. I think once the government is down to earth, things will be easy, rather than sitting in the office and thinking a really 100% perfect charging scheme, then it will never be running.
Well, perhaps I can just round off by what you've shared with us. I think all of you have a very positive message, including the audience, that it is possible. Let's go ahead and do it. We can have a even quite long period, like 1 or 2 years, right, for people to get ready. It is not about enforcement. It's about bringing the community together. And perhaps rather than the current message, which is it's divisive in society, right, because you're bothering people, can we see this as something that allows society to collaborate? Right? So rather than see it very negatively because people will reject it, is there some way for us to communicate, to work together, to demonstrate, to help each other to implement the scheme? Because our neighbors have done it, other parts of the world has done it, the mainland is going to do it, and they are doing it, very, very many bits already. So we are MSW-ready, many organizations, so let's move ahead. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. And I see some faces that you've come a second time. I hope you've learned something more and you've met some new people whom you can also call upon to understand more about this very complex subject of waste development. And thank you to Asia Society for the opportunity. Thank you.